Today you just found out your roommate with strange hobbies, like knowing how to pick a lock, knows how every puzzle and cipher by heart, or how to commit tax fraud, and so many other things, wasn't a guy with ADHD, he was an ex-assassin and now you have a gun pointed at your face. Look, I don't know what you're talking about, I told the man desperately. My roommate is just a normal guy, you know? I don't care if you don't believe me. Just tell me where he is. The strange man shouted, sending spit flying at my face as he did. Fine. He's at work, the local Lidl, I answered, hoping he'll believe me. Are you stupid? If I can track down his house I can track down his work. And he's not there. Well, that's where he said he'd. If he's not there, then I don't know. The man narrowed his eyes at me before lowering his gun. He must have known I was coming, made a break for it. As he left, he put his finger to his ear and spoke into what I assumed was a radio. As soon as the door closed, I ran into my roommate's bedroom to dig out his secret stash. I'd already found it while cleaning a couple months ago, but hadn't opened it, figuring it was a disaster survival pack or something, but with the new revelations, I had other ideas. I went to the floorboards and lifted them up to find a puzzle box that I already solved the first time I found it, so quickly solved again to pull out a bag. And viola, money, fake identities and, most importantly, a burner phone. I dialed my friend's number and waited. Once he answered I didn't give him time for his usual greetings. Some guy is looking for you. I don't know who, but I know it's something to do with your assassin days. I hear a curse and then he starts to talk to justify but I cut him off. You don't need to explain yourself, I know who you are now, I don't care who you were. What do you need? That grab bag, take it to where I had my first birthday party. With that, he hung up. I furrowed my eyebrows. He'd always told me he hadn't had a birthday party. So if it hadn't happened, it didn't happen anywhere, it happened nowhere. Oh, I got it. 30 minutes later, I found myself outside a pub a few miles outside of town. Normally you could get there in half the time, but I had to make sure I wasn't being followed. The pub was called Nowhere, people said it was because you could say to your spouse you were going nowhere when they asked and not technically be lying. I handed my friend the bag, filled with some chocolate as an added treat before saying goodbye. I'll miss you. Don't think the next roommate could replace you. But instead of agreeing, he shook his head. You won't be having another roommate. As long as they're coming after me, you're in danger. Go to this address. He handed me a small slip of paper. It's a safe house, you'll be safe there. Normally I'd be disagreeing, I had a life and a job and family here, but being held at gunpoint still had me shaken, so I just nodded and we parted ways. I drove straight home, packing up quickly what I could and talking with the landlord. I told him I'd recently inherited a house that came ready furnished, so I'd be willing to sell him the furniture so he could rent the room as pre-furnished. We came to a deal quickly and I walked away with some extra money in my account, that I immediately drained before driving. I didn't stop driving for almost 6 hours, not even for a toilet break, until I finally reached the address, somewhere in the middle of Scotland. It wasn't a modest house. 3 stories, as wide as my block of flats and a huge garden that I'd have to measure in acres rather than meters. The cupboards were wet-stocked with non-perishables and a large amount of money, so I knew food wouldn't be an issue for a while. So I unpacked and settled into my new home, looking at the landline, wondering when the call would come in that I could go home.